Okay.
Okay.
And then Jess, you want to hit record on our side?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, go.
Okay. You want to clap? We're going to clap just to link our sounds.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Perfect. That way she can link our audios together when we edit. Okay. So I'll start us off and then we'll just get into it.
Great.
Wait, my mic.
Welcome back. Oh, what'd you say?
My mic is not recording all of a sudden.
Oh.
What on earth?
Was it recording before?
No.
Oh.
Hello.
Man, all the technical difficulties. I'll stop mine.
Today. Oh.
Do you want to just make this one all via Zoom? Would that be easier?
Longer than a minute right now.
Okay.
Hello. Yep. Nope.
Okay, we'll just do it. We'll just do the whole thing Zoom. It'll be great. I guess I don't even need mine then either. All right. Well, welcome back to another episode of the In Raw Life podcast. We are so excited that you guys are here joining us today. And we have a special guest because it's January, and a lot of times in January, we've got our bodies on our mind, and we're thinking about our goals and our resolutions. And our guest today is here to tell you that maybe those resolutions are crap. No, not quite. But for real, we should really make a conscious effort on what our resolutions are and design resolutions in a healthy mindset so that we can achieve realistic goals and keep ourselves proud of who we are and what we're doing and accomplishing. So I want you guys to welcome Janice to the podcast. Hi, Janice. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, nice to be here.
So before we get into all of this, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Janice Eisman, and I'm the founder of My Body Couture. It's a one-to-one private studio, both in person and digital, where I help people feel better in their body. And that covers a wide spectrum of events and circumstances. But essentially, I help people with exercise and nutrition and do it in a really different kind of way. So a lot of my clients have been to the gym and find that something just isn't clicking for them, or they've been to a chiropractor or massage therapist to try to get rid of kind of aches and pains and injuries, and they find that it's coming back.
Mm. So what is your approach that's different than like going to the chiropractor or something like that?
Great question. So from the standpoint of something that's different from a chiropractor or massage therapist, those are great modalities. In fact, I actually share clients with a lot of chiropractors and massage therapists, and I use them myself. However, what tends to happen is that they are site-specific treatments. So we go to the chiropractor with a sore back and then return to our desk and sit there for 10 hours and work. Often what happens, and I've had this experience in my own body, where we get relief from some of those practitioners, but then we are patterning our body as we're walking, as we're sitting, as we're kind of taking on stress loads, and then that pain comes back. So I'm really working head to toe holistic to figure out the body pattern and the body system. And we are often with people covering really, really basic things first. So that's how you walk, how you sit, how you stand, things like that. Because if we're actually stressing the body when we do that, those are things we do hundreds or thousands of times per day. And therefore, a practitioner is going to really struggle to kind of get rid of that patterning that we're putting into our body every time we stand up or sit down, or every time that we're seated in our chair, kind of slumping over. So it's really about getting that core support and about removing those tensions and compressions from the body so that when we are at the chiropractor and when we are at the massage therapist, many of my clients will tell me the same story, but we're not just working out that same problem in this emergency level. Those practitioners can actually get deeper with their work as well.
That's so cool. So it's like forming new habits in the body and showing it what's
Exactly.
like the new muscle memory.
Exactly. And I always talk about this with my clients, but when we were in junior high or high school, most of us learned really basic body biology. So we can kind of call into mind a skeleton from a textbook or maybe a couple of muscle names, but no one ever taught us how to put any of that information together or how to practically apply it. So we didn't learn in school how to maintain our body. We learned the history of the USSR or, the name of a bone in the leg, but none of it really correlated to how our body's supposed to feel or how we could actually utilize any of that information to maintain it. So most of my clients tell me that they're getting an education about their body that's brand new information for them. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like an owner's manual for the body. How do we know what to fix or how do we know what to work on when nobody's ever really drawn their attention to any of this information?
Oh, that is so cool. I love it. I love doing research and like finding out new things. Even when I go to the dentist and something happened, I'm like, well, why is this happening? I need to understand it so that I know why I feel this way.
Exactly. So really cool. That's you are the kind of person that I love working with because it's that curiosity about how things work, mm-hmm. why things work. Yeah. And most of my clients will tell me, within the first week that their body awareness of how they're moving just shifts. And then because we have that body awareness, it really truly is a life-changing experience because you can't then take that out of your brain.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, I hate that you're so far away because I'm like, I just want to get there right now. I think it's funny, like as we're sitting talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like standing up taller. I saw Jessica, I saw you sit up too. And I'm sitting here with a baby on my back, which I'm sure is like, you're talking about all the weight of what you're doing throughout the day. And now I'm adding 25 pounds to my back. So I'm sure that's not the best.
The baby is hard. I mean, I had one of those at one point. He's now a fully walking, functional child, but that's a really hard phase of our body because you've been pregnant, which is very difficult to recover from, honestly. Yeah. It's 9 months of extra weight and muscle changes and tendon changes. And then from there, sometimes we're breastfeeding, sometimes we're not, but we are actually physically manhandling the baby. So there are a couple of years where even with the work that I do, I found it really difficult to counterbalance kind of just holding the baby all the time because it's a lot of weight.
Yeah, I even still find myself, my daughter's 8, and I remember towards the end, my belly was so big and I would have to lean against the sink to do the dishes. And then I still, 8 years later, every once in a while, find myself doing that. I'm like, no, I need to stand up straight. I'm fully capable of reaching it and standing up straight.
Yeah, that's actually a great comment because we think of the postpartum window as being the 3, 6, 9 months after having a baby. But there are so many women who come into my studio who have 8-year-olds and 12-year-olds, and we are still correcting some of those patterns that were in the body from pregnancy because they don't spontaneously go away. So our weight may have shifted forward, or it's really common to kind of take the whole upper body and we use the belly as a shelf. And then you go ahead and you add the baby onto that, and then your body just starts to pattern in that postural way. So postpartum actually is any period in a woman's life following having a baby. And it's not uncommon actually for women to come in with 10-year-olds because at that point you are starting to get a bit of your life back.
Yeah. So this isn't at all the path we were going to go on, but I have a question that I feel like just based on what you've said that you might be able to pour some insight into. So recently my whole family and I, minus the baby, has started going to a chiropractor, not just for our physical well-being, but for our mental well-being.
Yes.
Because I heard that alignment can affect your emotions. Can you speak to that at all?
Absolutely. And I'm going to make it kind of simplified because everybody can relate to this. So if we took our hand and just bunched it up gently, we wouldn't need to create a fist where we're gripping. Just bunch that hand up and walk around like that for the next 12 hours. There's a really high chance that, we're recording this at 8:00 in the morning. By 8 p.m., you would start to feel slightly irritable. You would start to feel maybe slightly anxious and kind of like you were in a straitjacket. You might start to feel like you just couldn't have additional capacity to take on tasking. And it wouldn't actually take that long to really impact your emotional state by just simply having your hand closed and unable to open. So if we think about that through our whole body, many of us have compressions and tensions and tightness like that at our joints. So I am a certified yoga teacher. And because of that, the number one thing that people will tell me is my hips are tight. Well, we have 22 muscles that cross the hip. It's not a super simple, exercise to zap that out. Like there's one single exercise that we could do to, a lot of yoga classes are actually sold as hip openers. And that's a complex region of the body. It's fully, we're able to fully do that. We're able to take that tension and compression out of there, but there's not sort of one simple magical thing that we can do. We have to sort of work those in balance. But the hips are essentially the fist, where if we are holding all that tension, all that compression, all that tightness in there, it's going to make you irritable and cranky, and it's going to make you less capable of taking on extra tasking. Your body is under stress, and your emotions are going to respond like there's stress, even when the stress is gone. So a lot of us get really used to what that baseline feels like. So if you walked around with your fist closed and you couldn't ever open it, you would just get used to the fact that that's how it is. And that's fundamentally what a lot of us are doing. We're just wandering around with this baseline of tension, compression, tightness, grip, things that just feel ready for battle, basically.
I know that's
I feel like, go ahead, Jess.
I'd say it's one of the saddest statements when I hear someone say, "Oh, that's just how it is," or "It is what it is," like accepting that whatever is not right is just how it's going to be.
Right. And that's something that particularly with aging that we tend to reinforce culturally. So we say, well, you're just getting old now. This is going to happen. And it's crazy because we start telling people that at age 30, 35. And the average lifespan of a woman in America is 85. So we're basically saying, I hope you enjoyed the 30 years. You have 50 left to go where you're going to be uncomfortable and grumpy.
Oh, man. Yeah, seriously. What, Jess?
I said, we will not accept that.
No. And I don't think we need to. So that's where it gets into New Year's resolutions are something that people often take on with the notion and the idea that we're going to lose weight or we're going to get more fit. And I believe that we actually need to go underneath that. So we really need to look at body sustainability, which is exactly what we were just talking about. We need to look at ironing the body out so that we don't feel this sense of tension, compression. We don't have postpartum stuff, postural stuff that's even a year old, let alone 8 or 10. So our fitness culture tends to focus on cardio, strength, and flexibility. And so what that tends to mean is that most of us say one of two things. Either I'm going to go to the gym an hour a day, or I'm going to lose 10 pounds. Now, those numbers might vary, of course. It could be I'm going to the gym 2 hours a day, or I'm going to lose 45 pounds, what have you. Nowhere in any of that conversation are we actually talking about how our body feels. Nowhere in any of that conversation are we talking about, can we sustain this? Nowhere in any of that conversation are we even addressing, how are we going to find time to do this? What are we giving up in the rest of our life to do this? Nowhere in that conversation are we saying, do we enjoy this activity? So a lot of the gym conversation that happens in early January or late December is really focused on tightening, compressing, and stressing the body. And for some people, that is a great outlet. I'm not against kickboxing or high intensity activities, but many of us actually don't need that. So if we've had babies, if we are having stress, maybe that's not the time to take on a high intensity program, but also we haven't really we haven't addressed the underlying issue of, is this sustainable? How do we keep our body sustainable? That for me is the very basis of that pyramid, where if we have all that tightness and compression, we have this emotional system that's, you know, on high edge. Adding an hour of cardio or adding an hour of strength training might be the last thing that your body needs. And this especially applies, unfortunately, to females. Mm-hmm. So it can actually increase our cortisol level. It can increase the stress level that our bodies feel like we are carrying. And this applies especially to mothers. And, you know, we don't want to hear that necessarily, but a lot of the gym culture is actually really designed for young boys with a lot of energy to get out of their body. Let's box. Let's get this energy out. We hit a phase in life where that stress load actually becomes a burden to us. And then we need to have body sustainability activities as opposed to kickboxing and getting that restless, you know, teenage boy energy in the body.
Yeah. So what would you recommend if a mother wants to lose her baby weight? What kind of exercise would you recommend?
That's where I would head into something that is actually restorative yoga to start, or a restorative technique or program, or even a Pilates. So that's really counterintuitive to what we're told mathematically, which is that we need to focus on calorie burn. But if we're going to focus on calories, do that in the kitchen. So I have nutrition certifications, and that's where we're going to get benefit from that. I would generally recommend that our bodies, especially because we are recovering from a major life, I don't want to call it an incident because the baby isn't. It's an occurrence. It's a major stress load on the body. We actually need to do things that are positive stress in the body. So we talk about stress in our culture as always being negative. We talk about being stressed and having stress, and it's bad. So that quite commonly is something that we use to describe external circumstances that are kind of flying at us. And the idea is that we should eliminate all stress. And actually, when it comes to our physical body, we don't want to actually eliminate all stress. We want to invite in positive stress. So I'll give you just an example so it makes a bit more sense. My sister had surgery a couple of years ago, and all over the ward of the hospital wing where she was recovering are posters that remind patients to get out of bed and walk. Because if you are bedridden, I think it's 2 weeks. It's basically equivalent to somewhere between 5 and 10 years of aging on the body.
Oh my gosh.
So the idea of removing all stress is essentially creating a bit of a death in the body. So we actually want to invite in what I refer to as positive stress. And something like a yoga or a Pilates or something that's restorative is going to be positive stress. We're removing the body, we're stretching, we're pulling, we're adding conditions where the body can respond, but we're doing it in a much more gentle way, as opposed to, again, and I'm not picking on kickboxing or spinning, but that might be interpreted by your body, especially if you've got a baby. I see yours on your back. That's a time of life. I mean, I have a 9-year-old, so I remember that time of life. You're not sleeping. You're still recovering from the postpartum period. You're still recovering from being pregnant. You might be breastfeeding. There's a lot of caregiving involved. Most of us don't need an outlet for restless energy. Most of us do that restorative work.
Oh man.
We need to take the body's stress response and pull it down. So we're not going to be doing heavy calorie burning, but I know in myself, literally since the day I've had my baby, if I'm not doing those restorative activities, my body says, uh-oh, let's gain weight. There's an emergency. And that hasn't changed for me in 9 years. And so, of course, there are people who are going to find something that looks quite different than what I'm saying. But I think generally, many of us really ought to look and see if we need a more restorative, sustainable program to pull our stress levels down and create that positive stress condition, or if we actually have extra energy and angst to burn and we need to do something that is a little bit more active, like the spin classes.
That's interesting.
Wow, that is so fascinating. Go
I
ahead,
did
Jess.
Pilates after I had my baby, and it was because Sierra had introduced me to like one of my favorite YouTube Pilates people now. I'm still doing her now. And that is what helped the most.
Yeah.
Postpartum.
Right. And that's, if you look into kind of exercise science on a basic level, that math shouldn't work. We shouldn't be able to lose weight and to have that efficacy because the calorie burn isn't there. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that happens during that New Year's window is we say, well, we're going to do the highest calorie burn activity possible. But I want to flip that for you and say, how can we introduce positive stress in your life to reduce the negative stress? And then whatever calorie shifts we want to undertake, let's try to do that through food as opposed to exercise.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I mean, I also have a 3-year-old, or no, he's 4 now. I have a 4-year-old on top of my 1-year-old. And so I feel like everything you're saying just kind of connects the dots for me, because I don't have energy for an intense workout right now because my life is an intense workout right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm carrying this guy all the time. I'm sure that's burning some calories, you know? So I didn't even think to not look at that aspect of my life because I'm doing it constantly.
You're doing it constantly. And I noticed in myself, again, there was a bit of a shift once I stopped carrying my child around all the time. I mean, he was 4 or something by the time that actually happened on a reliable level. But I suddenly actually found that I did struggle a little bit more to maintain my body weight. And it was because I had really underestimated how much of my day I was fundamentally lifting weights all the day. You know, my arms looked great. But in those years, I didn't care enough for my basic positive stress. So I tipped the scales more than once into burnout, exhaustion, things like that, because, you know, caregiving full time it's a big job and our bodies get exhausted by it.
Definitely. So I want to talk about how you and I had spoke earlier, and you brought up the media and how much the media comes into play and what we think we need to do, especially in January and September, was it?
Yeah. I think that there is a huge push towards us, especially in January, that we ought to set New Year's resolutions and we ought to set goals and we ought to #crush goals. And, you know, the genesis of that, I think, is publications like Shape and Women's Health and Self magazine that are dedicated towards a woman who wants to have health and fitness in her life and wants to have a healthy lifestyle. I used to work in the media, so what I'm saying is not against the media. I think there's huge consumer appetite for these topics and these conversations. But I think in our head, most of us really tag anything to do with fitness, health, and nutrition with what we've read in those publications. That has subsequently really spun off into social media. And then we're exposed to all these memes and everything that's associated with all of that. And all of it basically links back to willpower, discipline, and habit building. And those are concepts that have a lot of merit, but they also really set in our mind that we have to make a chart and we have to count numbers and we have to look at data, and that this is how we're going to succeed in this area. And I don't see a lot of conversation that focuses on how does your body feel? I see a lot of conversation that focuses on what are you going to look like in a bikini 6 months from January 1st.
Once it starts to warm up, right? Yeah.
Right. And then a lot of those magazines, publications, social media feeds really feed back to very similar exercise programs. And a lot of them are higher intensity, grind it out, sweat it out, do things that are very high intensity. And it all links back to the idea that effort equals results. And again, just in my own personal experience, after my child was born, I actually found that taking my foot off that gas pedal of effort created more results. So I used to be a runner, and that really worked for me before my child was born. In the couple of phases where I've attempted to reintroduce running into my workout life postpartum, and again, we're talking about, you know, he's 9, this isn't recent, I actually end up gaining weight. I end up going backwards, and it's because it's just too much for my body. So I think that the media has a huge influence because there's a lot of money associated with New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
2021 might be a little bit different because we have gyms that are closed in a lot of jurisdictions. So I'm going to be really interested to see what actually happens in 2021, because this is a very different year for us.
Yeah.
Kind of to go off of what Jess said earlier, when I had my first son, my big weight loss came from this. It was another, not the same YouTube channel, but it was something similar. And it was some interval workouts, but the majority of the workout was stretching.
Oh,
and I was floored at how much I lost weight really quickly. And the instructor in the video was saying that you have to, when you're doing the stretching, she's like, don't text, don't be looking around, just actually focus on the stretching because it releases the cortisol or something. I don't know the science behind it, but it was fascinating at how relaxed my body became. And anytime I've tried to do that workout and skipped the stretching, I don't feel the same at all.
Yeah, that's not shocking to me personally. But again, it's completely counterintuitive to what we have been trained by the media. And I want to mention that within the context of prior to basically the 1980s, it was really unusual to quote unquote work out. So if you track back the history of marathons, you track back the history of aerobics and fitness classes, you track back the history of yoga classes, a lot of this didn't really exist prior to the 1980s. Certainly 1970s and backward, it was kind of obscure and it was unusual. So, you know, in 1976, if you were a marathon runner, you were part of this very, you know, different kind of person group. Now that's, you know, now that's something that a lot of people have accomplished, and it's a common goal, and there's marathons all over the world. So I think the rise of fitness media and fitness mantras came along with the same time that fitness was fundamentally, I'm not going to use the word invented, but kind of in the way that we know it. So if you look at the Nike campaign, Just Do It, I believe that was in 1988. So we haven't really ever culturally known a fitness culture without the high intensity, let's just do it mentality. And so I think it becomes a really difficult thing to overcome when we think about what is working out, what is fitness, what is health. It's all tagged back to something that looks like willpower, discipline, and at the end of it, just do it.
Yeah. Wow.
So I have a question for you, for the listeners and or watchers. Do you have like top 5 tips or moves that people can do to kind of start using this mentality at home?
Yeah, I think you've already mentioned a couple of them, but let's start by assessing your own stress level and assessing your own feelings within your body. So I guess that's 2 separate tips, but are you stressed, or do you have stress to get out of your body? So if you feel like there's a stress load, no matter if you do or do not have children, no matter what age you are, if you're feeling external stress, that may be a time to invite in some positive stress, some stretching classes, some yin yoga, some Pilates, some gentle disciplines. And you can try that for 2 to 4 weeks and see if you get any different result from that. This isn't something that you have to try for a year to see if it works. Just invite it into your life and be kind of scientific about it. If you're going to, if you regularly go to the gym and do cardio, try scaling that back and doing a bit less stressful activity for a couple of weeks, see if you get any result. Number 2 is really feeling your body. So what does your body feel like? Are you feeling great, or are you feeling just okay, or are you actually feeling kind of terrible? And the terrible feeling for a lot of people are aches, pains, and those kind of nagging creaks that, again, we sort of tag with, well, that's how everybody feels after they have a baby, or, oh, that's how everybody feels when they turn 30. Be honest about that in yourself, because it isn't how everybody feels, and that isn't something that we should accept for the next 50 years. So if that is the case, where you're feeling just okay, or you're feeling like things are just not 100%, then I would ask you if you could have some sort of sustainability program. So again, I'm going to repeat kind of the same tips, but that's where we want to do yoga. That's where we want to do Pilates. That's where we want to do Yamana body rolling, critical alignment therapy. There's a technique called melt. There's a lot of them out there, but they're basically anything with a foam roller. It's meant to help your body come to a neutral place. So we can't really build fitness on top of aches and pains. We can't really build fitness on top of a body that feels terrible. So it's sort of like asking somebody to be productive if they didn't sleep last night. We need to look after that kind of base level. Number 3, I would definitely recommend not setting a New Year's resolution this year. And what I prefer instead, and I just gave you a little preview of that, is to break your habits into 2-week science experiments. So make one change at a time, test it out for 2 weeks, give it the full 2 weeks to see if anything happens. And by anything, that could be weight loss, that could be feeling better, that could be pain reduction, that could be just a sense that it's easier and therefore you can do it. So one of the things that happens with New Year's resolutions is we love to take on 16 changes at the same time. So, the typical New Year's story is New Year's Eve, you're drinking, you're eating kind of all kinds of stuff. And then the idea is that as of January 1st, it's all over and you're never going to do any of that again. No more carbs, no more alcohol, and we're going to work out for an hour a day, every day for the rest of your life. And the problem with that is it's very extreme. And there's also no way for you to personally know what it was that actually even made a difference. So the slower technique, scientifically, we have an 85% chance of making one habit change stick. As soon as we do 2 habit changes, we have a 15% chance of success. So if you eat, drink, and be merry New Year's Eve, the only thing you need to do for 2 weeks following that is pick one thing that you want to change. It could be maybe not drinking. It could be whatever it is. It could be, I'm going to do a stretching program for 2 weeks. Then you actually have the sense of whether that works, but it's also small enough that you can probably do it. You have an 85% chance of success. So if we change the idea to make it small, we're likely to succeed. So that's tip 4, is really, what's the smallest building block that you can add to your life? Make it teeny tiny. So, and for a lot of people, that tiny building block is something that maybe, again, is a bit counterintuitive. So if you want to get up and you want to go to the gym, or you want to start working out, let's say a lot of people want to do that at 6 a.m. or before their work day. But at the end of it, if you're tired, your body isn't going to be in the zone where you're like, okay, let's get up and let's do this. So that's one of the reasons a lot of people actually fail at their workouts, because they're tired. So many of us will look at the wrong piece of that. We're trying to use willpower to get ourselves to work out. But maybe the habit change is actually go to bed at 9:30 or go to bed at 10 o'clock.
Yes.
So I think a lot of people can really relate to that. Or the habit change is, acquire the outfit or the shoes that you need. So what's the tiniest step that you can take? Make it smaller again, make it smaller again. Because we can't actually implement a habit if the background fundamentals aren't there. We're not going to work out when we're tired. In fact, research shows that we eat more when we're tired, and we can't overcome biology in that sense. So we have to really get honest with ourselves and then take these tiny little steps.
Have you ever read the book Atomic Habits by any chance?
I read part of it.
Okay, because I just finished reading it, and that's like almost straight out of it.
Is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he even says, if like your goal is to work out, maybe you need to look at going to bed earlier if it's not working. Maybe you need to buy the outfit. That's the smallest thing. Maybe even just commit to going to the gym for 5 minutes every single day, and you have to leave when 5 minutes is up. So you're like creating the habit of going. And then once you start doing that, you're like, I might as well stay and get longer.
It's true. And even if you don't, it's okay, because it's the idea
of creating the muscle memory to do it.
Yes. And actually that book is very tied to a book that I did read called The One Thing. And in One Thing, it's really about that one thing. One of my certifications is precision nutrition, and that's where the concept of make one habit change for 2 weeks comes from. That is a nutrition program that lasts for a full year, and it's based on those building blocks of one habit. So drink water is a full 2 weeks. Chew your food is a full 2 weeks. And I've gone through it myself, obviously, because I coach clients in this. Sometimes it's really tedious because you're like, come on, I don't want to just chew food for 2 weeks. But if you think about 52 weeks in a year divided by 2, that's 26 habits. And that's a major habit shift that we kind of underestimate the power of small.
That's super cool.
And then I think the fifth tip actually is just jumping off what you said, is read some books on habits. And I love The One Thing. Read Atomic Habits. There's a book, I believe it's by Charles Duhigg.
The Power of Habit.
Yeah, exactly. Any of those. You don't need to read 16 or 17 books, but just get an understanding, because I think, again, the fitness media has given us the idea that it's this instant magic that after 21 days, we have this habit and you'll never have to think about it again, which is just true. But if you do some habit reading and research, I think you're setting yourself up for understanding how you personally build habits. It gives you, things to contemplate. When I read the Charles Duhigg book, it did actually put me in the space where I was like, oh, how does that apply to me? How can I implement this? And I did feel like things got a little easier, because then I'm not trying to take somebody else's workout and somebody else's nutrition plan and put it into my life. It really started with, what are the underlying habits and what do I need to create in my life? So that would be my fifth tip, is just, grab a really great book that's been published in the last couple of years and read about habits, because that's what it ultimately is about. We're never going to succeed at taking the workout from Shape magazine and just tossing it into our life if we don't really understand how habit building works. And it isn't as simple as just do it for 21 days and magic ensues. Sadly, I wish.
Wow. I have to say that it seemed like we had prepped you with those 5 tips and you totally rolled through them like it was effortless. We did not give you that heads up and you totally nailed it. So thank you. So before we let you go, we have 2 questions. The first is we always ask all of our guests, what, if the rawest moment you're willing to share. So the idea is that we all, we're all doing great things, and you have your health in check and you've got your body in check, and people might think, oh, well, she's an expert and that's why, and she's perfect. But we all have raw moments too. So if you could give us whatever the most raw moment you're willing to share is, just so our guests know that you're a real life person too.
I'm definitely a real life person. So I'm a lone parent. I gave birth to my child as a lone parent. So I do not have a second parent to share custody or to provide finances. And so I parent by myself. I also owned a bricks and mortar business. And when my son was, I have a hard time sorting out exactly when, but I had a year where I just had a set of really difficult external circumstances. And it just seemed like it was one thing. It actually didn't seem like it. It actually was one thing after another flying at me. And the combination of new business ownership, lone parenting, and all of these really difficult, stressful things happening at the same time, one after the other, I literally burned out. And I had to, I help people feel better in their body. And I had to really overcome shame of, there was times when laying on the floor felt like too much for me. So how could I actually start that exercise process again? People would sometimes ask me during that phase, what do you do for exercise? And I was like, ooh, nothing right now. So, I really went through a couple of years, honestly, where I didn't feel great myself. And I was teaching clients and helping clients with all this information, but really struggling myself to implement some of it. And so a lot of the things I'm saying today are from the lens of this works in all circumstances, big or small. We can break this down into tiny little steps. And, if I was to go back in my life to those moments where I was so burned out, I would just recommend to myself 5 minutes in a stretch, which is kind of what I ended up doing. I, certified in yin as a direct result of that phase of my life where laying on the floor felt too much. And I started with 7 minutes of yin every day. Like I could do 7 minutes, and that's all I did.
That's awesome.
Thank you for sharing that. I especially love that you shared something after you already became like who you are, because I feel like that's even more raw to say like, no, I haven't always had it together either, even though I do this for a living. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then the second part, to bring it to a little bit of a lighter note, Jessica has a quick lightning round for you.
Okay.
5 questions, whatever pops into your head first. First question is, what is your favorite thing to drink first thing in the morning, or your first drink of the morning?
I thought you were going to say, what is your favorite drink? And I was like, it's champagne. But then I heard the
Hey, mimosas.
I like either black coffee or matcha tea.
Oh, intense. I like it. Yeah. What is for dinner tonight?
Oh, geez. Probably a rice bowl. I actually, in the midst of the pandemic living, I acquired a chef to help me prep my meals because I have a school-age child that I'm helping with his education, and I have a business that I am still managing in all its many elements. Yeah. So I have my chef provide vegan meals. So I think there's some rice bowl goodness. I make sure that it's something with a lot of veggies.
Nice. That's cool. That's smart. I mean, they say, we can't do everything. So you have to figure out what you can outsource. And I love that.
And I actually love cooking, but I needed to recognize that this is high nutrient living. So bring it to me.
Yeah, I love it.
What is your favorite holiday?
I would normally say Christmas. I love decorating. I think that it's like Christmas trees are like jewelry for the house, and I love a little jewelry for the house.
I like looking at it like that.
And wait, why did you say normally say? Would you change it this year?
I went a little bit this year. This year is a little bit tricky for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's COVID, so it's just everything's a little off.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm like holding on to our traditions even harder, like the stuff inside the house, so it feels like it,
I love that.
And then these last 2 questions we ask all of our guests. The first one is, we love small businesses and we love to support any small businesses out there. So what is your favorite small business?
Do I have to only pick one?
To just off the top of your head today.
Yes, I have 2 actually. So
okay, we'll take 2.
There is a local florist in my city called A Small Flower, and I get flowers delivered to me every week, and she is literally a floral artist. It is the most amazing, most gorgeous, most invigorating, revitalizing thing that I have done for myself.
I love that.
It's literally a work of art every single week. And then the second business, again, it's a local business. It actually exists in my building where I have my physical location. And it's a shop called Danielle's Consignment. So it's consigned clothing, and she literally wardrobes me head to toe. And the owner is the sweetest person on the planet. She actually calls me when there's stuff that comes in that she knows is my brand, my size. So I feel fantastically well dressed every single day of my life, thanks to Danielle Haddon of Danielle's Consignment.
Oh, I love that.
I love that you picked two.
Like I can't and both of those women are mentors and fellow business owners that are just really important people in my life. I love them.
That's awesome. And then the last one is, what is your favorite thing about you?
Ooh, that's a heavy hitting question. I'm a really curious person, and I think that is my favorite thing, is I always have questions about why and tell me more. And that is something that just creates a lifelong passion for learning and for wanting to explore new things. And it keeps my life active, lively, and vibrant.
I love that.
I'm grateful you have that too, because your level of understanding of the body is so huge. And like just this little hour we've spent with you has given me so much insight. So yeah, thank you for how much you pour into that. And so, but on that note, how can we find you? Because you said you have online classes, and then once the pandemic's over, do you travel into the States?
I do.
Can we see you in person too?
I do travel. I do retreats. I see people in my studio locally or long distance through Zoom, etc. And then I do have some classes for people as well. So my business name is My Body Couture. That's 3 words. My, M-Y, body, B-O-D-Y, couture, C-O-U-T-U-R-E. So you can look me up on the .com or on Instagram or Facebook, and you can connect with me, network with me, send me a message. I love hearing from people, especially after doing these kinds of interviews. Definitely just drop me a note and say, hey, I heard your interview. Would love to just connect.
Awesome. Oh, so nice to meet you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us and for giving us some of your time to share with our audience, because I know our audience is full of women who needed to hear exactly what you had to say, ourselves included. So thank you so much for that.
Thanks for having me, and happy 2021.
Yeah. Enjoy the year. Hopefully we'll connect again soon.
That would be lovely. Thanks.
All right. Well, that's all we have. So you can get off to. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We hope that you got some great actionable tips from, wait, it just started recording. Dang it.
It showed me it was recording already.
Oh, it just started counting. Oof, perfect timing. Well, thank you for joining us today. We hope that you got some actionable tips to improve your resolutions this year, or just kick them to the curb altogether. We're so glad you keep coming back. And because it's still the beginning of the year, we want to wish you a healthy and strong year. And speaking of strong, if you want to be a part of the podcast, you can send us what strength means to you, and we'll feature you at the beginning of the show. So how that would go is you would find the little recording device on your phone and say, strength means, and then you fill in the blank, or being strong means, however you want to do it, whatever feels comfortable to you. And then shoot that over to podcast@inrawlife.com, and we will put you at the beginning of one of our fantastic shows.
And if you love us so much, and this episode so much that you just have to share with everyone that you know, then please screenshot that you're listening and post it to your Instagram stories. Tag us at inrawlife.co. You can text message your friends. You can post it to Facebook, put it anywhere you can think of, so that this podcast can grow and people can hear the really cool things that we're putting out. You can also rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, so that the podcast gods know that we are someone that they need to raise up and listen to. Until next week, I hope that you are having a wonderful new year. I hope that you are thinking about what you can be doing for your body so that you feel strong for you, not for anybody else. And if Nike tells you to just do it, decide whether that's what you want to do or not. Bye.
Nice. All right, I can stop recording.